until I get to the speakers.
We're going to get started here this evening. We have a lot on the agenda, so it's time to get started. And we are going to call the meeting to order. And Mrs. Luton, let the record show that all board members are present this evening. And Stephen's going to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to introduce you to two students from Disney Elementary School who will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Noah Phelps and Preston Lambeth. They are both fifth graders who have distinguished themselves as leaders at Disney. According to their principal, Dr. Lynn Miller, they are both good citizens, they're kind-hearted, they possess all the qualities necessary to be very successful in life. Noah is the student council president and he leads the recycling team. Preston is a member of the Disney Dynamics Choir. Both excel in academics and they represent the characteristics of a dynamic daily dolphin. These students are accompanied by family members and Dr. Miller, and at this time we ask that they please stand so that we may acknowledge their support. Oh, awesome. That's a great group. So now we ask that everyone please rise as Noah and Preston lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great job.
So now we would like to present to you our 2018-2019 Teacher of the Year and the 4 Teacher of the Year finalists. We invite them to come forward as we call their names. We have Jean Lawson, Amy Bollinger, Joshua Cantrell, Bethany Hubble, and Audra Uzel. Last night, the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools hosted the annual Teacher Appreciation Banquet. This is always a wonderful event, and we appreciate the efforts of Natalie Murdoch, Pamela Anderson, and the entire foundation team who work so hard to honor our teachers. Thank you all. At that wonderful event, which many of you were able to attend, Jean Lawson was named SPS 2018-2019 Teacher of the Year. Ms. Lawson is a special education teacher at Truman Elementary School, and she has made a significant impact on the lives of our students there who participate in communication, socialization, and sensory integration class. It is an interesting coincidence that Jean and one of her students were in attendance at this meeting last year to highlight the Rolling Cafe, which is a refreshment cart that her class operates. She had just received a $10,000 grant to help fund that effort. There are many other examples of her efforts to support our students' personal learning journeys. As a representative of SPS, Jean will now go on to compete for Missouri Teacher of the Year at the regional and state levels. She and the 4 other finalists were selected from 138 nominations as outstanding examples of teachers here at SPS. The finalists are Amy Bollinger, 2nd grade teacher from Watkins Elementary School, Josh Cantrell, the communication arts teacher at Central High School, Bethany Hubble, the 2nd grade teacher at Jeffries Elementary School, and Audra Uzel, scholars teacher at Phelps Center for Gifted Education. Congratulations to each of you, and thank you so much for all that you do and for being here tonight. Thank you. We have 2 more teacher recognitions tonight. First, we would like to welcome Mr. Stephen Kleinsasser, who is a speech-language pathologist at Delaware Elementary School. Mr. Kleinsasser? Stephen recently earned a professional certification that distinguishes him as the only person in Missouri to possess this distinction. The Center for AAC and Autism officially confirmed Mr. Kleinsasser as a LAMP certified professional. LAMP stands for Language Acquisition Through Motor Planning, which is an approach that works to improve language and communication skills in individuals who are nonverbal. At Delaware, there are a couple of students whose success stories have been especially impacted by Mr. Kleinsasser's use of these techniques. In working with one student, he has used eye tracking technology to open doors for communication. A computer system tracks the eye, and when it locks on a symbol, the student is able to express themselves. Another student who is visually impaired uses wooden blocks with various textures to communicate their needs. According to Delaware principal Stephanie Young, the work that Mr. Kleinsasser is doing broadens these students' horizons by enabling them to communicate in new ways, many times for the first time. Congratulations to you, sir. Thank you. This is a great night for Delaware. Another staff member has also achieved an honor, and we would like to recognize that tonight. Ms. Robin Fondren. Forward. Robin is the Delaware School Counselor, and she has been named Counselor of the Year by the Southwest Missouri School Counselors Association. Robin focuses her efforts on ways that she can support students and meet their individual needs. She has helped develop curriculum that is developmentally appropriate for the special needs students who attend Delaware. She also engages students in helping others, evidenced by her work with the Student Council to establish a food pantry at the school. Beyond her own school, she uses her professional talents to support other school counselors by serving on leadership teams and as a co-facilitator on the crisis response team. Individuals who nominated Robin for this award say that her openness to trying new things in order to benefit students is one of her greatest strengths. Congratulations to you. And finally, we would like to celebrate one of our employees as part of our Power of One initiative. Here is our April Power of One story.
Joy is something that is so easy to transport. I just bring it with me every day. I'm Cheryl Looney, Principal Secretary at Studi Alternative Center. I am from Springfield, Missouri, right here in the Queen City of the Ozarks. I'm a graduate of Central High School. I enjoy reading. I love spending time with my family and friends. I have two sons, and they are Central graduates as well, so they followed Mom and Dad's footsteps. My first job was with early childhood, and then I went to Bailey, which is now Studi Alternative Center, and I enjoy it because we get so many different students from all over the district. And so my goal is to create a positive, joyful moment for them. There's not a day that goes by that I don't smile with one of the kids, or I laugh, or we tell a joke, but we have fun.
Cheryl impacted my life because she was just so positive every morning, therefore it made me really positive every day. I already didn't want to be in high school, and she just made it a little bit more enjoyable because she was always so happy.
There's so many things in this world that are going on that are not so joyful. And just because life is not so joyful doesn't mean that you can't experience joy. So I look at this as a platform to bring some joy to kids. I've been doing this for a long time as a parent volunteer, and I've continued to do it throughout my years.
Really, we'll start that from the beginning as well because the sound was a little bit quiet. So we want to make sure that you hear all about Ms. Looney. So we may blast it out this time.
Joy is something that is so easy to transport. I just bring it with me every day. I'm Cheryl Looney, Principal Secretary at Studi Alternative Center. I am from Springfield, Missouri, right here in the Queen City of the Ozarks. I'm a graduate of Central High School. I enjoy reading. I love spending time with my family and friends. I have two sons, and they are Central graduates as well, so they followed Mom and Dad's footsteps. My first job was with early childhood, and then I went to Bailey, which is now Studi Alternative Center, and I enjoy it because we get so many different students from all over the district. And so my goal is to create a positive, joyful moment for them. There's not a day that goes by that I don't smile with one of the kids, or I laugh, or we tell a joke, but we have fun.
Cheryl impacted my life because she was just so positive every morning, therefore it made me really positive every day. I already didn't want to be in high school, and she just made it a little bit more enjoyable because she was always so happy.
There's so many things in this world that are going on that are not so joyful. And just because life is not so joyful doesn't mean that you can't experience joy. So I look at this as a platform to bring some joy to kids. I've been doing this for a long time as a parent volunteer, and I've continued to do it throughout my years.
Fantastic. So please help us welcome Ms. Cheryl Looney, the Principal Secretary at Studi Alternative Center.
We've become very good friends tonight. Thank you.
So Cheryl is just one example of many Power of One stories that are being shared across our district, and I wanted to let the board know here in the coming weeks we'll be featuring a story on sps.org about how Power of One is catching on not only among our staff but among our students. There is a group of elementary students who have been inspired by seeing their teachers recognized, and they have begun to recognize one another for great inspiring work that they're doing. So that's something to celebrate within the district. At this time, we would like to welcome Mrs. Marty Moore to the podium, and she will present our partner recognition.
Good evening. The Missouri Department of Conservation envisions a future with healthy fish, forests, and wildlife where all people can appreciate nature. As a team, they work tirelessly to protect and manage the resources of our state and to facilitate and provide opportunities for all citizens to use, enjoy, and learn about these rich resources. SPS has been lucky to benefit from their excellent skills and their amazing hearts for public service. Long before learning in the field was the in thing, they've walked beside SPS staff and our students, providing patiently and with affirmation rich experiences. Warren Rose and Greg Collier are two of the department's most valuable assets, and they're here with us tonight. They've served as ambassadors for conservation and lived out that ethic through their service to our schools. Over the years of our partnership with these gentlemen and the Missouri Department of Conservation, they've provided archery certification instruction as well as their expertise and support for our archery tournaments, fishing instruction and support for middle school and high school fishing clubs, expertise in curriculum writing for outdoor sports, field experiences for outdoor awareness, outdoor living, and our Explore classes. They've generously shared their resource materials and their equipment and partnered with physical education classes and teachers for over 8+ years. They also are highlighted at several of our Tournament of Champions. You remember the casting exhibitions out on there and some of those things. We would not be able to provide the rich experiences that we provide our students without their counsel and support. And so Teresa Miller is going to come up here with me to offer our heartfelt thanks tonight to Warren Rose and Greg Collier. If you'd come forward, please. We just can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. So we're going to present that certificate, and we're going to get you to turn around. We're huggers and get a, yeah, we are. Get a picture. There we go. Please join me.
Well, I was about to get to that part. Now that the fun is over, I know those of you who came to see that exciting stuff, you do get to leave now. Don't feel like you have to stay. Go, go, go. Thank you for being here. We enjoy those celebrations. And now we are going to move to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Well, I was going to ask
Oh, I'm
if I had a motion, but
You do. You have an eager one.
we have an eager motion, and do I have a second? Alina, that's okay, Alina moved and Charles second. And now, if everyone would vote, as our friends filter out. Did you guys get one? I don't have mine coming up. Does everyone, is it coming up? Mine didn't. It's not come up. Am I not? So I'll verbally say aye, but am I not? Where's my friend? Bruce? Oh, hold on. It's all good. Because they knew you were coming, that's why. Because I called out for help. Should I do something wrong? I like that about you. Very good. Okay, so now what a lot of the rest of you are here for, we're at 2.01, which is the public comments to address agenda items. And I'm going to read what the parameters are of this event. The Board of Education welcomes comments from the audience about the issues being discussed. It is recommended that requests to speak be submitted prior to the beginning of the meeting, and comments will be limited to 5 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. The board uses this time in our meeting to listen to comments and/or concerns from the public, but will not comment or engage with speakers during this meeting. If you have materials that you want to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to the board members. I have 8 forms regarding this tonight, and so I'll just take them in order. And we'll begin with Carrie Ellegard. Come on up to the podium, please. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Carrie Ellegard. I have lived directly across the street from Bowerman Elementary for close to 17 years, which is one of the elementary schools, along with Campbell and York, proposed to change as the neighborhood elementary schools. I would like to gear my focus towards Bowerman, although my hope is that some of my points are considered in the decision on the fate of Campbell. I have 3 children, ages 18, 14, and 8. My oldest just graduated Hillcrest, my middle is at Reed, and my youngest is in 2nd grade at Bowerman. All of my children have attended the neighborhood schools located in our district. Our beloved neighborhood of Woodland Heights is where both Reed and Bowerman are located. Bowerman and our other North Springfield neighborhood schools have served my family well above and beyond over the last 14 years. First off, I want to take a minute to talk about the staff I've seen at our school, Bowerman. I owe so much to these wonderful teachers and principals that spend time investing in my children's education and well-being. I really don't think there could be any better educators or even mentors to my kids than some of the ones they were blessed to have at Bowerman. There are so many stories and examples of the diligence, compassion, and care of the staff, and how comforting to know my young children and their teachers are so close by. I know this is part of the reason I am able to be more aware of the efforts of these amazing teachers. Each morning I get to see from my front window teachers helping kids cross the street, and I hear them build the kids up with excitement and positivity day after day. These teachers work together and genuinely care to make the school what it is. Another problem with this proposal would affect our after-school programs. So many families depend on these programs, such as the Dream Center. The Dream Center recently moved into our community and extensively renovated a large building with kids in mind, specifically close to the school to serve our families that truly need help. The staff from the Dream Center walks to our schools to pick up children and take them to the after-school program, which includes many activities that benefit our kids who might not otherwise have the chance to experience some of the wonderful opportunities offered there. This proposal would completely destroy this program that so many families depend on for after-school safety. I would like to touch on the aesthetic and beauty that these grand old schools add to our historic neighborhoods, specifically Bowerman, which is adorned with beautiful stone and tile work that surround the building. From what I understand, it was built by the same architect that designed one of Springfield's most treasured architectures, the Shrine Mosque. There are many intriguing details inside and outside of our neighborhood school. It would be a tragedy to take these from our neighborhoods and replace them elsewhere with new box schools that resemble large flat prisons. Our historic structures, used as they were designed, add, and I would even say are the glue that give the close community feel and complete the structure of our Springfield neighborhoods. It is essential that we keep these wonderful old buildings throughout our neighborhoods full of our children. Just the sound of them playing on the playground add breath, life, and excitement to our community. Sorry.
You're doing fine.
With these changes, our buildings would be left to be rundown, depressing structures that would eventually cause our neighborhoods to decline and slowly die. Let's not make the same mistake other cities have made that have abruptly vacated or changed old neighborhood schools. Other communities are scrambling to fix what they have destroyed. They learned the hard way. Let's learn from their mistakes. As I'm speaking to you, the school board, I hope that you understand that we as Zone 1 residents feel we're taking advantage of for our less vocal involvements. We plan to stand together to save our schools. We as citizens would like to ask why it seems the North and West schools are continually picked on regardless of having higher scores. We are the neighborhoods that depend on our schools to stay afloat as an upstanding community. With all the positive things going on in our area that we anticipate, we are hopeful. Please, I beg of you as a school board to consider our desperate plea as North and West Side parents and residents. Do not sabotage our efforts into bettering our community simply because we might be thought of as easy targets that are not worthy to appeal to because of lower voter turnout and less confrontation. Things are really looking up for us as of now, but if our area plummets, the city as a whole suffers also. Thank you for your time to listen to my desperate plea to save our treasured historic neighborhood schools once again as a Northside Springfield parent.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Wendy Rhodes. Hello, Ms. Rhodes. Good evening.
If it's okay, before I start, I would like to continue the celebrations by wishing the Campbell Elementary principal happy birthday. This is his birthday, and so he is here today, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Good evening again. My name, of course, is Wendy Rhodes. As a special education teacher at Campbell Elementary, and as a teacher, I would first like to say that I am not against preschool. None of us at Campbell are, of course, against preschools. As educators, that would go against everything we stand for. So although we are very much pro-preschool, we are very pro-Campbell. We are for Campbell Elementary. As small as we are with our declining population, we're needed by the students, we're needed by our parents of the students, and we're really needed by the entire community. Since the closing has been made public, you have heard many valid points on all sides from parents, community members, leaders. But the vote is coming up soon, and so I just wanted to make sure that all points have been clearly heard and thought out. Yes, early childhood is needed, but the reality is that our building is not practical for preschool. It just doesn't make any sense. It may make do for a few short years, but then what? We're going to end up with most likely we'll end up with an empty building sitting vacant, much like a few other buildings that Springfield owns, much like the one on Scenic, the old Sherwood building, which to my understanding is, a wonderful building, was once thought to be used for housing preschool possibly. I'm not sure what came of that, but now it's sitting empty and single level, much more suitable for little legs. Just wanted to throw that thought out there. Yes, the proposed savings on closing Campbell and making them McGregor looks wonderful on paper, but what are the true benefits? What are the true savings going to be after it's all said and done with? And what are the true costs? How do you really feel about the decision that you're going to be making tonight? How will you feel about your decision a year from now, a few years from now? I do fear. I fear what the future will hold for our families, for our students, for the community if Campbell is closed and eventually left empty. What's going to happen to the community? We're all aware that it will not remain a preschool for an extended period of time, and I really think that a lot of thought needs to be put into that. But again, as much as the thought of closing Campbell distresses me, from the beginning, as a teacher, I mean, it already felt like it was set in stone, so my focus, my immediate fear is for the fall. I simply cannot stress enough the importance of making sure that we have support in place for McGregor. They, like many other schools in Springfield, will fail using the justified numbers handed down to us by administrators and lawmakers that are not in the classroom, that are not dealing with the needs of the students in our area. The teachers and staff are the ones that are providing what is best to the ones that you value the most. That's why you're here. You value the students of Springfield. But the truth is, society is changing. Teachers play a bigger role now, more so now than in the past. A bigger role not just for our students, but in our area, we have a bigger role with our parents as well. So the truth is, you're going to have to need more staff. It's not just about the size of the classroom. Now, I will say I am very, very grateful that a behavior tech position has been added to the staff at McGregor, but the truth is that is not enough. It's one small step, but it won't be enough. You're going to have to put more people over there. You're going to have to put more support over there. I have no doubt that the staff will be wonderful, but again, just adding one position is simply not enough. It's going to take more people, and I know that's going to take more money, and if you're having to put more people over there and you're having to continue with the operation cost of Campbell, then again, your savings on paper really starts to melt away. So what is your true cost going to be? And not just financially. What is your true cost? What is the true cost going to be? Because I'm standing before you now, and I can tell you that there is a cost that does not show up on paper and that does not show up in monetary terms. I would like to say thank you for your time tonight. I will end with this. Please let our community know that you do value our students and that you do stand behind an engaging, relevant, and personal education for everyone, for students in the entire district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Dr. Roy Holland is next. Good evening, Dr. Holland.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. My name is Roy Holland, and I'm a former state legislator for 8 years, House member on education, and for elementary and secondary for 6 years. I'm still an advocate for educational opportunity for us all, and many of us here have benefited greatly from our educational opportunities. This is especially important in Springfield as we experience a creeping free and reduced lunch at 1% per year. We are slowly increasing in poverty. It's important that we should have a continuous pipeline, and then that will serve as probably the best solution to reverse poverty in our city and also stabilize families. If we have weaknesses in anywhere in the pipeline, it affects the rest of the pipeline, and this is especially true in the early years of elementary education and reading. The issue tonight that I'm talking about is the proposed closure of elementary schools at Campbell, York, and Bowerman. I believe that this is accurately portrayed as a closure because there will not be an elementary school at Campbell, York, or Bowerman when this is complete. Yes, there will be classrooms for preschool, but that does not equate with an outstanding functioning elementary school. As you also know, Campbell and York are in the top third of Springfield 36 elementary schools. Bowerman is number 2, and it is gaining. We must respect these schools and recognize them as good models and an inspiration for the district. Not to do so, I believe, is a dishonor to the staff, the parents, and the students, as we deny their achievement, and we further demean them by assigning them to a much lower performing elementary school. This, I think, can be characterized as dumbing down, and this should not be acceptable educationally or morally in our community. There was an event last night that was recognized here today, Teacher Appreciation Banquet, excuse me. And that's appropriate, but can we do that and still close our outstanding elementary schools? When the best schools are subject to closure, it places all the others at risk. Also here in the paper, we have an article from a few days ago about the Springfield Teacher of the Year accepts a job in Nixa. This indicates some SBS indifference to excellence or incompetence in management. Yes, we do have a good existing preschool, 600, and it utilizes space in 12 locations. I will say space in 12 locations, and puts this all together. We do have to screen these kids because they all don't need it. The state legislature has promised much more money, but the budget will not be complete until May the 7th. And no district in the state will have space to double or triple in 1 or 2 years. So let's be honest, let's respect local quality, schools, staff, parents, and students. Let us choose gradual expansion that preserves neighborhoods, respects staff, and achievement. To do this impulsively, to sacrifice quality for empty space will alienate this board from the community, and I think you risk defeat of any future bond proposals. This is the first vote on 3, Campbell, followed by York and Bowerman. This is going to take 3 years to occur, and by that time, I think this board will be partially or completely replaced, and I suspect that the superintendent will be working somewhere else. So I'd urge that a bold member of this board should move to table the motion for over 6 months and not do any architectural approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Scott.
Good evening,
Good
ladies and
evening.
gentlemen. I've been making so many notes, I'm not sure I can read my little speech, but I will try. I live in Springfield, Missouri. I have kids and family, and just like you do, that are in some wonderful schools, and they're doing wonderfully. If it's Disney, if it's great, but that's not my passion. My passion are these neighborhood schools, these Title I schools that I feel are neglected. And when we come up with York and Campbell, and they can make the progress they've made, we should be ashamed of ourselves to think about closing them. Achievement scores and betterment of student experience and the best education possible should be the goal of everyone in this room. Taxpayers should be able to expect more from this district. Unfortunately, many don't take the time to really pay attention to how our tax dollars are spent. It may be easy for this board to think if we can show that we can pass a bond issue and show some new buildings, that maybe nobody will notice what's happening to our district, the education of our kids. And it's not just our kids at Gray and Disney and these outlying areas. It's these 80 or 90% that's made up of these Title I schools. So far, the agenda the leaders of this district have advocated has not produced results. When, I hope, will the board show some independent thinking and analysis, as well as just some common sense about what needs to be done? I have hundreds of names on petitions. We have 2 or 3 here that have hundreds of names. Campbell is, although a small school, they're taking care of their students. So what if we have to spend a little more money to keep 130 kids there with the love and care that these teachers have shown? We couldn't spend any better money than to keep those 130 kids there, send some pre-K kids there, let those brothers and sisters walk to school together. Remember, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, that we had this about Central, and now look where we are with Central. So you think Campbell is really ready for 4-year-olds? It's not now, and it won't be in the future. 2 sets of double stairs in that school, 2 flights of stairs. What's more likely to happen is we'll spend thousands of dollars on that renovation to devastate a neighborhood and devastate families and build more administration offices on the 2nd floor than we will taking care of pre-K kids. And what will be the cost to bus 200? I know, we're probably going to end up with pre-K. How, we don't know yet. I hope you haven't made up your mind. What will the cost be to the district for 200 4-year-olds across the city? You'll need more than 1 adult on a bus. You can't put these babies that are 4 years old on a bus with 1 driver. I wonder if this has really been thought through, the specifics. Or are the plans to buy a fleet of small buses with car seats for these little ones? Leave the Campbell kids in their neighborhood where they are exceeding and stop discriminating against these small neighborhood schools. Try it. It might work. This is the first chance you have to try it. With regard to these small schools and the results this district is producing, the Chamber of Commerce, the business community, should be taking note of what's happening in this city. We know we've got the largest district, you've got the Title I, you've got the poor areas, but we also know, I know dozens of friends and dozens of people that come to this community, and where do they want to go? They want to send their kids to Willard and Rogersville and Ozark and Nixa, and they do it, and you know they do it. Or to send their kids to private schools. I listen to many teachers who talk, and you should listen too, despite the HR reports that I've heard. I have a hard time believing there's this satisfaction in the district. When what I hear directly from teachers is what we're told by our bosses up the ladder. Get on this train or get off at the next station, and we're losing really good educators in this district. Keep Campbell as it is, add pre-K. The money can't be burning a hole in the bank account. You don't have it yet, and may not even get it. Campbell, York, and Bowerman just need the normal maintenance that any building would call for their age. We budgeted air conditioning, they're set up for electronics. I think we need to give them a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carl Hurd. Hello, Mr. Hurd.
Good evening. I'm Carl Hurd. It's my pleasure to speak to you. Madam President, members of the board, and administrators. I have some questions for you to think about. Number one, why spend money on architects at this time? Let's think about your function as a school board. First, you have the power to hire and fire the superintendent. Second, you adopt programs and policies that provide a liberal arts education and prepare students for college or the workforce. Third, you are obligated to prepare and maintain facilities. Fourth, build new buildings when needed. With enrollment flat, there is not a need for more shiny buildings. Our 12 schools are failing to educate students and maintain buildings. Look at the test scores. Below state average, 2 years in a row. Something is wrong with school board policy. Is it open classrooms? Did I say that? I'll repeat it. Is it open classrooms? Fremont scores need to be studied. Your school has very high test scores on the list of poverty schools, but you want to close it. Maintaining buildings is an ongoing problem. Last Tuesday at York, parents pointed out more maintenance is needed at York. Again, spending money on architects will place any future bond proposal in jeopardy. Has R12 Schools considered its competition? I know that you know that thousands of students are homeschooled or they attend private schools. And if you cannot get your educational program together, you will continue to lose more and more students to homeschool and private school. It's a wake-up call, folks. I heard the presentation last Thursday at your board retreat. Apply Kansas City Charter School enrollment to R12. If R12, and see, I think that charter schools, you must be worried about them or you wouldn't have spent 3 hours at a board retreat. Charter schools are probably got a real high chance of coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And if they did, then 4 out of 10 classrooms would be empty. That's based on what Kansas City has experienced right now. Apply the St. Louis enrollment to R12, then 3 out of 10 classrooms would be empty. I don't want that. I want you to step up and look at your programs on how you're educating kids and get it together before you ask for any more bonds. This makes the agenda item to hire architects completely unnecessary. Use tax dollars that would be spent on architects to educate kids. Don't get the cart before the horse. I really want to talk about one particular word, and I'll just mouth it. But that'll be at a later time. So, thank you. To be continued.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Kathy Ryan. Hello, Ms. Ryan.
How are you guys this evening?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm here as a grandmother. I'm here as a Springfield citizen who attended Central, Pipkin. All my kids attended these schools, Boyd, Roundtree. So these schools are really personal to me. And it's not just about the school, it's about the history of the town that I really love. And I've lived in Boston, I've lived in other places, but I came back here because Springfield is always home. And part of what makes it home is our history. So I found a few facts looking about Campbell. I don't know if anybody knows this, it was built in 1884 and it only cost $6,800. So I thought that was a pretty good deal back then. It's 9th in academic improvement in the city, and this is a big number for me because my grandkids attend Campbell, and the teachers at Campbell have changed several of my grandkids' lives by their hard work, their dedication, the treatment that they gave these kids when they attended that school. 90% are low-income families. 94% of McGregor kids are low-income. McGregor sits at 27 in academic improvement. There's 12.1 students per teacher at Campbell. The state average is 14.1. So these students are getting, a lot of attention. There's 199 students per counselor at Campbell, as opposed to McGregor, where there's 342, which is just under the state average. But what concerns me is what's going to happen when you move 150 students over there with already that many students with those counselors. So I want to address a few things about the school with declining. That decline has just been recent. Like I said, my grandkids attend there. It fluctuates. That neighborhood's actually in a renewal. All the houses are being fixed up. People are moving in. Young families are moving in. So I don't have any worry about the attendance. It's going to go back up again. And if you are worried, why not put a preschool there? Last year, the citizens voted down the $180 million bond issue. And Dr. Jungman said, overall, I don't think there's any such thing as a failure. But I disagree. I think the board is failing citizens who rejected this outright desecration of our North Side historic schools. He seems to have almost a dislike for historic schools, that while they may be old, I mean, just go to Europe. If you want to see old buildings, they value old in Europe, and that's why everybody goes there now. They're clean, they're well-kept, they're beloved by the neighborhood and the community, and we want to preserve our histories. Studies have shown over and over again that high-risk minority and poor children thrive in smaller schools. So if the board's strategy is to provide an equitable, and this is from Dr. Jungman's quote, an equitable opportunity for all students to learn, then why is he moving children from a school that's thriving in a poverty-stricken neighborhood to another high-risk school with fewer staff, half as many counselors? Not to mention, they don't talk anything about, and this is another of my major concerns because I have a 5-year-old grandson that's going to start there if it stays open. He'll have to walk 1.3 miles through a really dangerous neighborhood, whereas now he walks 3 doors from his home with all his friends. No one's talking about busing these kids. So if somebody doesn't have enough money to transport their child, so now we're going to send them past the, I don't know if you all heard about this, but it's something that really disturbs me, past a burnout house where a convicted pedophile had set up shop until his victims burnt his house down. You want my grandson, and I think somebody said it was 0, there wasn't going to be any, fallout from putting these kids over here. Well, I say my little grandson cannot walk 1.3 miles through this neighborhood. I know the neighborhood. So I think that's a real big concern for a lot of the parents. You use the preschool model, but most of us who've done the research know you already plan to build another preschool like Shining Stars. There's no promised funding for this, and there's no promise for Campbell's future. Preschools work better in the schools where their siblings go, where their parents can drop them off with the other children. So I'm asking you to please postpone this decision. Don't disregard our voice and what we have told the board that we want. Save our history. Postpone this decision until the community as a whole can be involved and you can listen to what the community wants. Because I do think it will have an effect on your future if you don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Oh,
Ryan.
here's the petition. Thank you.
Ralph Plank. You can hand them to Ms. Luton.
Okay. Hi,
Hello.
I'm Ralph Plank. I went to Boyd, Pipkin, Central, Drury, and still live in the Midtown neighborhood. I was a school board member from 1998 to 2004. Before implementing a facilities plan, the district should first develop a new academic plan to raise achievement and close the achievement gap. When you look at the students who attend SBS, 54.2% qualify for free or reduced lunch and are considered at risk. When you look at how our elementary schools' combined math and English proficiency scores compare to the state, the district was below state average last year. When comparing elementary schools with less than half at-risk kids to schools with more than half at-risk kids, there was a large achievement gap. The district wants to close at-risk schools Campbell, Bowerman, and York and use the buildings for preschool classrooms. Here's another idea. The research is abundant and clear that smaller schools are better for students. In a summary of hundreds of studies in 2011, Cobalt states, quote, "Many studies conducted during the past 20 years have found that small schools, particularly at the primary school level, have a positive effect upon student achievement, extracurricular participation, student satisfaction, student behavior, and attendance. There is also evidence that closing schools is likely to lead to lower student achievement. The study continues. First, small schools should be maintained, and the most impoverished communities should be served by the smallest schools. Second, government policy should strengthen the benefits of smaller schools serving low-income families, rather than seek to close them. Third, large schools may not be as cost-effective as is often assumed, especially if they lower outcomes for significant groups of students and increase inequity in education, end quote. So what does the research say about how big elementary schools should be? In their 2009 review of 57 school-sized studies, Leithwood and Jancy conclude, quote, elementary schools serving student populations exclusively or largely from diverse and or disadvantaged backgrounds should be limited in size to not more than about 300 students, end quote. The district has stated they want to listen to the community and will be, quote, keeping elementary schools in high-poverty neighborhoods small. The majority will be 300 to 350 students, end quote. This is an encouraging improvement from last year, but the district is missing the meaning of the research. Elementary schools in at-risk areas should not all be 300 to 350 students. They should be no more than this. The district should not close neighborhood schools that are smaller than this. We should embrace the smaller schools we have and make them better. The Cobalt research found that after a school is closed, quote, in particular, students are likely to experience something of a culture shock. School closures and amalgamations are more likely to result in lower student achievement, end quote. Just look at Westport. Our largest at-risk elementary school of about 450 kids has consistently had some of the lowest achievement for over 25 years. York has the highest scores of our at-risk schools and is above district and state averages. Campbell is one of the higher performing at-risk schools, right at district average. McGregor, where the Campbell kids would move, has lower achievement than Campbell and will become too big at around 400. The district should study York and Campbell, see what is working, and share with the other at-risk schools. When I was on the board, we asked the superintendent to track the performance of the Dolan kids after their school was closed and they moved to Williams. Their test scores and the scores of the school dropped and never recovered. This also happened when Westport expanded in the early 90s and when the middle school was added recently. The research and our own experience is clear. The larger the elementary school, the lower the achievement. And the smaller the school, the higher the achievement, especially for at-risk kids. Closing higher performing Campbell, moving students to larger low performing McGregor will result in lower achievement for most students. The consolidation seems short-sighted when these two schools have the highest percentage of at-risk kids, with the fourth and third highest percentage of African-American kids in the district who all need smaller schools the most. Here's the idea. Don't close Campbell, Bowerman, and York and make centralized preschools. Keep them open as K through 5 schools, add the preschool classrooms there, and in other neighborhood schools with extra space to build capacity. The Catholic schools in Springfield do this. The district does this now with Wonder Years and early childhood special education. This would save on busing and construction costs, put the preschools closer to the students. Keep Campbell, Bowerman, and York open as K through 5s and add preschool classes there. SPS, please listen to the community and do what is best for children by keeping Campbell open and develop a new plan to raise achievement and close this achievement gap. It is possible. We can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Fred Ellison.
Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion relating to the closing of Campbell Elementary School, the proposed expansion of early childhood education, and the current state of Springfield Public Schools. I'm a product of Springfield Schools, graduating from Glendale in 1971. I currently live outside the city limits of Springfield, but within the boundaries of the Springfield School District. I am a property owner and a dedicated, productive citizen who votes in every election. I want every member of this community to be happy and successful in their life, and this is the foundation of my concern for the quality of education that the children of Springfield will receive. What I think or believe is of no consequence. The only thing that really matters is that the children of this community are being taught the skills that will serve them for the rest of their lives. A year ago, the voters of our school district said no to the facilities bond issue, which proposed the closure of several neighborhood elementary schools and the transfer of students to larger, more remote, consolidated campuses. Campbell Elementary was one of the victims of that proposal, as were Delaware, Bowerman, Boyd, Robertson, and York. I am not sure what part of no the administration and board do not understand, but the answer is still no. The students of lower income neighborhoods do not need or want to be bused to a shiny new building with open classrooms with 60 students and 2 or 3 teachers in a noisy, chaotic atmosphere. Elementary students need a more structured, personal environment where the foundations of their education can be established. Until a student can read, write, and do basic math at grade level proficiency, the project-based learning should wait until middle school and high school. Teachers need to know their students, understand their needs, and be held accountable for student achievement. The proposed conversion of the neighborhood elementary at Campbell into an early childhood education center is a deceptive way to proceed with the facility plan without voter approval and to jump into the current hysteria of pre-K education. One only has to research more deeply into several studies of pre-K programs in Tennessee, Georgia, and Oklahoma, as well as the federal Head Start program, to find that the benefits of early childhood education seem to be minimal or non-existent after the first few years of elementary school. Grabbing as much federal and state funding seems to be a more likely motivation for beginning a pre-K program. I have printed copies of some analysis of pre-K for the members of the school board, should they be interested in this information. The members of this elected Board of Education need to be independent, critical thinkers, and not just a rubber stamp for every proposal brought forward by the superintendent and school administration. The school board needs the backbone to say no when finances or evidence do not support a particular project or approach. The idea of abandoning older buildings which do not allow a structural modification for combined open classrooms and the burdening of taxpayers with millions of dollars in long-term debt may be just such a case. Isn't student success across the entire district more important than the open classroom agenda of an administration? This school board needs to put student success at the top of its priorities and tell school administration that test scores do matter. Student test scores are not only an indication of student success, but also an evaluation of the school board, school administrators, and teachers. An acceptance of a climate of mediocrity starts at the top of any organization and will ultimately result in the failure of the entire enterprise. I challenge this board to be accountable to the students, parents, and taxpayers of the Springfield community by requiring the school administration to achieve improving student test scores and student success. Our community, our state, and our nation require dedication to this task. If you are not able and willing to accept this responsibility, step aside and let others take on this challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Thank you all. That's the end of the public comments that I have paperwork on tonight. So we will move on to the next agenda item. And there are 3.01, 4.01, and 5.01 on consent agenda. So what we need is a motion for the board to approve the consent agenda in items 3.01 through 5.01. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Is that Charles? And a second?
Second.
Jerry? And now we will vote. So that vote is in, and we will move on to the treasurer's report and Ms. Embry. Good evening.
Good evening. Apologize, my voice is wavering a bit from me. We posted for you our typical documents for this month's treasurer's report, and I will highlight for you some of the items indicated on the items of interest report. The budget amendment and transfer report includes a revenue adjustment relative to Medicaid school district administrative claiming, so that's how we seek reimbursement for some costs through Medicaid funding. On the expenditure side, we have a decrease in professional services for construction management and also an increase to align the athletics budget to actual relative to increased student support in that area. Debt service revenue was also increased to align the interest earned on the 2017 bond escrow account to the actual received. So overall, our fund balance continues to be stable, and we are projecting an ending fund balance at June 30 of now 17.09%. That's a slight increase from last month's report. The other documents included for your review include our typical general budget summary that provides you with the information by fund, as well as the surplus property report, the investments report, and the bond summary report, as well as some other general reports for your review. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Ms. Embry? Thank you. Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. And a second?
Second.
Charles, and now we will vote. Okay, and the votes are in on that. And we will move to 7.01 board policy, and Dr. Jungman.
Yeah, these three were presented at April 3rd study session. They're straight recommendations from MSBA, policy IGBD, at-risk students, IKF, graduation requirements, and JHDF, suicide awareness and prevention. And any additional questions, let us know, but I've not heard any concerns. It's MSBA aligning to statutory changes for the most part.
Okay, very well. Is there a motion that the board adopt these policies as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. And a second?
Second.
Is that Charles? And now we will vote. Okay, and those votes are in. So now we will move on to 8, which is new business, and the Missouri School Board Association Delegate Assembly is a delegate-driven organization, and local board members, through their involvement in MSBA's Board of Directors and Advocacy Committee, review and recommend resolutions to the Delegate Assembly. Delegates will also serve as the liaison between the MSBA and the local Board of Education to ensure that information about MSBA programs, services, and activities is communicated to the other members of the board. The annual meeting of the Delegate Assembly of MSBA is scheduled during the MSBA Massa Fall Conference, September 27 through 30 of 2018. A second delegate assembly is held in June each year and deals with governance issue. Our board may send 3 delegates and a designated alternate to the MSBA Delegate Assembly. One of these delegates in the past has also served as a member of the MSBA Board of Directors. If it is agreeable to all of you, I would recommend that we appoint the same delegates as last year, which is Denise Frederick to the MSBA Board, Alina Leonard, Tim Rosenberry, and Charles Taylor as the alternate. This doesn't sound needed.
It's just need a nodding of the heads.
I think that I would like a slight nod. If you're not on that list, nod more energetically. Okay, very good. All right. And now we'll move on to 9, unfinished business, which is the benefits renewal 9.01, and Carol Embry.
This was all presented at the previous meeting with the data, and there's no adjustments to that, so.
Oh, so she doesn't even have to stand up?
There you go.
Okay, well, I
Unless you have a
remember.
question for her, but,
I remember that being good information at the last meeting, yeah, very positive. Do we have a motion to approve the benefit renewal recommendations as presented? Thank you, Bruce, and can I have a second? And Denise will second, and now we will vote. Mine was rolling along really fast, and now it's resting. Do you want to do it orally? I'll give an aye.
Threaten to call Bruce.
Okay, oh, yeah, no, he's right there. Okay, that happened, very good, and now we'll move on to 9.02, which is the technology lease. Carol Embry.
Good evening again. So we have updated the posting that was provided last board meeting, and the information now reflects the actual responsible lowest bidders for the technology request, and also indicates the bank or the financial institution with regard to the lease purchase piece of that
I think that.
activity. So if I may highlight for you, the Chromebooks, the award to the lowest responsible bidder is Riverside Technology. And the Chromebook cases, the award is recommended to a company called Connection. Again, the lowest
The background music is getting a little
responsible
distracting.
bidder. So the rest of the information posted includes the information regarding the lease, and this is a 3-year lease recommendation. The interest rates that were received, and recall that we received just-in-time delivery of interest rates prior to this meeting so that they would hold true, and those rates range from 2.48% to 4.25%. The recommendation this evening is with Clayton Holdings LLC, and at the 2.48%. This would result in a total interest investment over the 3-year period of $38,348.94. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those, or call upon Bruce Douglas, our Director of Technology, for any specifics on the technology purchase side.
Does anyone have any questions for Carol or Bruce? Okay, anyone not listening to the rolling skateboarder? That is, okay. All right, well, stick with me because this is a long motion for me to read, so I'm going to do that now. Do I have a motion to approve the technology equipment purchase presented and authorizes the execution and delivery of a lease purchase agreement with Clayton Holdings LLC as lessor for the acquisition, purchase, financing, and leasing of certain technology equipment, authorizing the execution and delivery of other documents required in connection therewith, and authorizing all other actions related to the lease purchase financing contemplated by this resolution.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina, and a second? Second, Charles, and we'll vote. Ooh, it was there and then it was gone.
Whoops, mine. I think I got the one.
I think the skateboarder went away with it. Aye. Okay, and the votes are in on that, and the skateboarder has returned, and we'll move to 9.03 architectural services, and Carol, you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. We posted for you first read information that the 3 firms that had been previously identified and hired for the project study would be providing us with bids, and that was received April 4 as anticipated. And I provided for you the primary components of the scope of work, and that is posted on board docs for public view. The 3 firms have identified their study work estimates for the fees, and that would include H Design Group with Hollis and Miller for 14 elementary study projects, $256,250. Dake Wells Architecture for 4 Biddle K-8 study projects, $93,750, and Buxton Kubik Dodd Inc. for 2 high school study projects, $71,218. The total fee commitment would be $421,218, funded by bond funds that remain. And recall also that this is for them to go in and ascertain the costs and the options with regard to renovation or new construction, and ultimately provide you with those concepts and costing estimates for your consideration in the coming months. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Yes?
Can we use this money that's being discussed in these bids, can this money be used to educate kids?
This money is expressly limited to the acquisition, land purchase, construction costs only for bond projects.
So this money can only be allocated to facilities?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Thank you. This is a much shorter motion, so be ready. Is there a motion to approve the fee commitments for architectural services as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Alina. A second?
Second. Jerry's got it.
Tie, so we'll give it to Jerry. And now we'll vote. Maybe. Okay, and the votes are in. We'll move to 9.04, which is the 2018-2019 Budget Development Capital Projects. Ms. Embry.
Yes, going to locate it. Ms. Luton, do you know where
It's
I?
right.
Go to that.
Go to, yes.
Nope. It's okay. Oh, I didn't see that. I apologize. Thank you. Okay. So, this evening, our presentation on budget continues, and this evening, we will focus on the Capital Projects Fund. This shows the timeline and our journey so far. We're halfway through as we complete this presentation this evening on capital projects. May 1st will be purchase services and supplies. May 15th, salary and benefits. We will provide a full budget presentation June 5 and seek your approval at the June 26 meeting. This reminds us of our 5 separate funds and the 2 fiduciary funds under which we operate and the funds that we are managing. And you can see that the Capital Projects Fund is approximately 4% of the overall governmental funds that the district manages. That's based on our original budget this year. Our discussion objectives this evening include the fund sources and definition of the spending types, the spending cycle, life cycle replacement, including some specific information on white fleet replacements. We have historical expenditure trends and fund balance projection, as well as some information on the 2018-19 safety planning work that is underway and an overall estimated budget at this point in time. The fund balance is always relative to that fund balance carryover, and in a subsequent slide we'll talk a little more about how that can fluctuate. We're also allowed to transfer funds into the Capital Projects Fund from the operating fund, and there is a specific calculation that is provided by the School Finance Department of the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. In the current year, that's just over $11 million. That is provided each year. There are also other allowable transfers, such as grant match or nutrition services match, that type of thing. The revenue distribution is another option where we can direct receipt certain revenue types into the Capital Projects Fund, sometimes referenced as Fund 4. We, in the Springfield School District, direct receipt merchants and manufacturers surtax into the Capital Projects Fund. There are some districts that have a levy that they set in the capital projects fund, and so a levy distribution of certain revenue types would be applicable as well. We do not exercise that in Springfield Public Schools. Furniture typically is one of the items that is purchased, as well as fixtures and equipment, and that's at a $3,000 per item threshold. Anything less than that typically is coded to the operating account. We also are required to provide lease purchase payments out of the capital projects fund, and as well the land, buildings, and major improvements. So the capital projects fund from a DESE perspective includes not only regular capital funds, but also those bond funds. So to Mr. Rosenberry's question earlier, these would be those limited funds under which we can make that type of purchase. We do combine those when we provide you that annual report, and that's per the department's expectation as well. This slide shows you the capital project spending cycle, and you can dissect it on your own if you'd like. I mainly am wanting to help you understand that when we bring forward recommendations from a particular cycle approval, such as the one that has been underway this year, we refer to that as the FY18 cycle approval. It started in the fall of 2017, where leaders in the system would identify the needs and submit that through a work order process. We continue the vetting and the prioritization and ensuring that the requests are code authorized. And then some of those expenditures might occur in the current fiscal year, or the bulk of them would likely occur next year. Some then may occur also in FY20. So we basically have a rolling balance for capital projects funds. And most of it is relative to the availability of us to get in the buildings and not be disruptive to instruction for teachers and students, such as balls rolling in the ceiling or something like that.
Or something.
Or something like that, yes. The life cycle replacement, we've talked about this at previous discussions when I presented to you Focus Area 3 goals, and we've implemented this capital inventory process so that we can keep that up to date and be provided with excellent recommendations in terms of the cost to replace certain areas or items, such as equipment and buses and White Fleet, and then also the site and building improvements that are so important to protect our assets. The benefits are it provides that real-time inventory data, and it basically drives the work and provides us with real data to provide a rationale for what we do. This chart depicts the current capital forecast replacement planning. So of all the items that have been entered into that system, in order to appropriately replace everything that is considered aged out at this point in time, it would require $23,248,549. So you can see the categories identified there. Now, although the capital forecast tool provides these estimates, we still apply common sense and logic. We would visit the roofs and ensure that they test appropriately for whatever the cycle recommendation would be. I'd like to take a moment to delve into the White Fleet, and that would be for vehicles. So these are non-buses. Last year, during this presentation, I provided you some specifics on our bus replacement plan. A general rule in governmental fleets is a 12-year replacement cycle. If we apply that logic to the vehicles that we currently have, we have 72 vehicles that were purchased between 1987 to 2006, so they exceed that 12-year threshold, and the estimated cost to replace those at this time would be $2,046,768. We are conducting an analysis at this time to determine what would be the best strategy in terms of which vehicles we should replace. This shows you a closer look at the areas where the service areas, excuse me, where these vehicles are utilized, and you can see those listed there: attendance advisors, custodial grounds, IT, maintenance, nutrition services, purchasing, school, police, and transportation. We've provided not only the number of vehicles. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This may seem like a silly question. Is white a technical term, or is it just non-bus?
Well, that's industry standard. It's referred to as White Fleet. I don't know if it attained that moniker because oftentimes, especially in governmental use, they're white in color, but that's a standard term reference. We could say non-bus. Yeah.
Having no aesthetic sense
Right.
whatsoever, I'm just curious.
Right, that's a question I didn't anticipate, and now I'll have to check it out.
Didn't occur to me until just now.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. So, not only is the number of vehicles listed by department area, but also the SPS average age and the national average age for that particular vehicle type. So you can see that those vary, and that we have some opportunities for upgrades in some of those areas, and we're in great shape in others. This shows you a snapshot of our fleet, and you can see we have 127 vehicles. Again, I mentioned that the oldest aged vehicle is 1987 all the way to 2017. These vehicles are serving our 25,000 kids, our 4,000 employees, covering nearly 138 square miles to serve 57 buildings, and that's 4.2 million square feet of buildings. So there's a lot of territory to cover, a lot of work to be done, and they utilize these vehicles in that service.
Carol?
Yes?
When we say fleet, we're talking about passenger people
Right, they
driving,
would be-
not equipment, not...
That is correct.
Anything
These are
like
not
that.
mowers or
Okay.
trailers. These are actual vehicles that drive on the road.
Licensed vehicle.
Correct. They would be potentially cargo vans or maintenance vans, that type of thing. This depicts the purchases that have occurred over the past few years, and you can see that utilizing an average cost per vehicle of $24,150, the current average annual investment the past 5 years has been $100,251 for each of those years, and we have a placeholder in the budget for the upcoming fiscal year of $175,000. This, so that's the white fleet. Now I'm moving into the capital fund for building and site improvements. This is historical information. This shows you from FY06 to FY14 our historical trend line for expenditures to protect our assets and improve those buildings and sites. And the capital outlay over that range of time was from $1.3 million to $5.6 million during those years. So on average, we were investing $3.528 million per year in all of our buildings and grounds areas. And since the FY15 year, we have been consistently investing $6 million per year, or allocating $6 million per year in those areas. The 1.3 million figure, that's very low for a district our size and with the number of buildings and square footage that we have to maintain. Certainly, all the funds are relative to one another, and there would have been some lean operating years during those times where they had to cut back likely on the expenditures. The Capital Projects Fund historical expenditure trends, and this is reflecting all expenditures, not just the site or building upgrades. This is since FY14 through current year budget. You can see that there are some special spikes that occurred, and that was relative to the purchase of a building, and also included the lease payoff information from FY17. This shows you, this is actually a screenshot of that which is included in our annual budget that we provided you last June for the current year. And it shows, I mentioned that each year we're investing at the $6 million threshold. This year we have budgeted $7.5 million. Currently we're projecting that approximately $3 million of our allocation in the current year won't be spent due to the timing of delivering projects, and that will then be requested for the upcoming year. This does include the investment that we committed to previously of just over $1.3 million for facility master plan projects. This shows you our fund balance, our beginning fund balance, and our projected ending fund balance for the current year. And you can see that the revenue and expenditure is nearly aligned. And again, projects that are not completed by June 30 and paid for will be shifted over to the next fiscal year. A reminder that our leaders do submit those work orders to identify the needs, and the operations team then applies cost estimates for evaluation. Then the collaborative effort occurs with our instructional and our operation leaders to prioritize those needs and especially meet the needs of those in the classroom as well as continuing the protection of our building assets. I've included for you a summary of the prioritization conversations that have taken place with regard to safety planning for the upcoming year. So recall the information Dr. Jungman shared at the previous meeting. We've engaged with a number of constituents basically throughout the system, and this represents that of our leadership team, where we've identified and prioritized those things that they believe would be most advantageous in terms of ensuring that we have consistent protection for staff and students throughout the district. We have a number of sites that have great vestibules and entryways. We also have sites that don't have those secure vestibules, and that was the number one item identified. Intercom systems, security cameras, radio signal, and cellular coverage in our facilities were the next items prioritized. The ability to lock all exterior doors through a panic button in the office was number 5. Alarms on those exterior doors so that we would know if any are not appropriately secured, and then ensuring that security clearance badge access exists at all exterior doors. So those are combined a bit, would be addressed in a similar fashion. And the last one being bulletproof or bullet-resistant film on glass for main office and entrance vestibules. So we are committed to identify the appropriate level that we might be able to address moving into fiscal 19, and that will be information that we bring forward to you for consideration at a subsequent meeting. This shows you our current estimates for FY19 by category. And it's a bit small to read, but you can see we've got additional categories broken out as compared to how we provided this to you in the past. So you can see specifics such as flooring or tuck pointing. The controlled purchases line, I would highlight for you, that represents things that they come in through a work order. They're technically likely going to be a supply purchase, but it could be something that's consistent like whiteboards or that type of thing that we would not want our building principals to have to address. So we do that as a group purchase, and it also provides us with some purchasing efficiencies as well. Cafeteria tables is another area in that regard, and our leaders here have done that for many, many years, purchasing cafeteria tables in bulk. So you can see the equipment needs identified. The total capital projects estimated at this time is $6,173,836, and the total capital purchases is $3,489,342. We also have those leases indicated, and we've significantly reduced that expenditure with the payoff of leases in the past year. So overall, the total Fund 40 capital non-bond request at this point is just under $12 million, much like the current year. That is the conclusion of the capital presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I should take this opportunity to tell you all that while she was speaking, I learned that there was some work being done to the air conditioner on the roof, and that was what the noise accounted for. But they've asked them to stop, so it's becoming, the silence is, I think, winning the day.
Skateboarding was a better story.
Well, you all may go and tell whoever you like that it was skateboarders. I'm sticking with AC repair. Okay. Thank you for that presentation. And now we're going to move to questions. So they didn't have any, but let's ask them one more time. Does anybody have any questions?
I just make one comment.
Go
I
ahead.
really appreciate the safety side of things, talking about that. And hopefully as we move forward, and Bruce has said this before, as we do the facility master plan implementation,
Yes.
that these things are all inherent and built in, and we keep them forefront of what we're doing in the design phase. So I appreciate that we've isolated that out and not just buried that in to capital projects, that we've actually made a conscientious public effort to do that.
It's been a primary focus and
Absolutely.
a multitude of conversations and more to happen.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Lots of us were nodding when you said that, because that has become a priority for us, so thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to 9.05, repurposing Campbell Elementary School, and Dr. Jungman will make a few remarks.
Just wanted to bring you back up to speed on the process and the history that's brought us to tonight for the consideration. The administration is bringing forward the recommendation for your consideration to proceed with the repurposing of Campbell to an early childhood education center to be open next fall, and adjustment of the boundaries of McGregor to bring in that elementary attendance zone. This came out of, originally, if you remember, October retreat, where the board was studying next moves on facility planning, and you asked us to proceed with bringing any facility recommendations regarding buildings that had declining enrollment and opportunities to potentially use that to consolidate a building if that was necessary or if that opportunity existed. So this is the only one that was identified for that, absent anything with a study of a future facilities. That recommendation was originally brought forth to you February 6th for consideration and review publicly, and then on February 20th, the board took action and authorized the administration to proceed with a public hearing regarding this recommendation, and that took place on March 8th as policy requires here at the Craft Administrative Center, where the recommendation was presented to the public and comment was made and opportunity was provided to public. The board was then given that next month to review, right, and for you to study and for you to consider and to contemplate your thoughts and ask if we had any additional or any questions that you needed answered individually. The reconfiguration information, just to remind you, Wood McGregor would continue to serve as K-5 with a next year projected enrollment of 340 students. That would include the Campbell and McGregor populations. That is well within the capacity of that facility, and both McGregor and Campbell have been in a declining enrollment phase for the last few years, with no indication that that would stop. So the campus would likely start at that, but potentially shrink from there if the trend continued. McGregor would be staffed at a ratio under the current title process, which that means we're looking at at least 17 total sections and always monitoring that. Can expand that as necessary, but the average class size would be less than the Title I average across the district. So it would be 20 students or less in every one of those classrooms is the target. It would also, you asked many things about instructional and supports, right? Because that's a key through this phase, is that we want to make sure if you proceed with this, that those students that are transitioning have all the support necessary. And we know the adults are the most important thing to help make that happen. So the supports, McGregor would have a principal and an assistant principal, a counselor, and a lot of title supports, because it does generate the opportunity to invest significant title resources. We have 2 title learning coaches to support our teachers, 2 title reading specialists to support our teachers and kids, 2 behavior interventionists to support students and teachers, 2 special education teachers. The recommendation would go to a full-time teacher of PE, music, and art, which would be overstaffing a little bit based on the ratio that we would typically do, but we think those staff could help support in this transition for sure. And then they would also have access to librarian and instructional technology support like other campuses. This, based on this calculation and the projected student enrollment, would be the heaviest certificated support staffing for our teachers and students of any building in the district, just to help with the transition, because we know that's not easy and want to support our students and staff through that. Community supports are also a big part of this. So McGregor's been blessed to serve as a host for 2 full-time community partnership of the Ozark staff. We have a senior social worker that works at McGregor and other places in the area and is staffed at McGregor. They also staff a community development specialist in our partnership that does a lot of things for the students, and they would continue to serve that population as we move forward. So those community supports, and it's also just been announced that the Boys and Girls Club will proceed with opening a before-school child care program called McGregor in the Morning for additional supports for kids and families as part of the next year plan, no matter what happens with your recommendation. If the recommendation would go forward, we would plan to open Campbell as an early childhood hub, offering free 5-day-a-week, full-day programming for up to 200 eligible students, using the resources that state will make available July 1st that has been officially stated by the department. No matter what happens through the budgeting process, that those resources will be available. Campbell would also serve as a PAT hub, parents as teachers, for district PAT educators in that region, as well as potentially some other regions. and a transportation project would be piloted for the first time, offering some transportation opportunities for early childhood to a to-be-identified zone based on the interest of those students in that area. And that would be based on the number of kids are interested in where they would come from. So that's the foundation. That takes you back through the history of where we started this conversation several months ago. And a little of the data. I know you've seen much more detailed data regarding many other things, but that's just a quick summary.
Thank you for your summary, and I know that this has been a topic that we've all spent a lot of time thinking about and listening to a lot of different comments about and studying. So is there any of you who wish to make any comments or statements before we take this to a vote?
Perhaps not surprisingly, I would.
Very good, Charles.
I mean, it's a difficult choice in a lot of ways. I want to honor the passion for the Campbell community. I mean, you've done us the honor of sharing that with us. We also have to honor, in my judgment, our fiduciary and more importantly to me, even if this saved no money, it would still be, I think, an important consideration on a pedagogical ground. This was an administrative proposal, to be sure, that's true, but it's also beside the point. That doesn't carry necessarily any weight. I think my spinal health is fine, and as an educator, dumbing down is never a good idea, is never an option. So taking advantage of the opportunity to move us forward in keeping our community's every child promise is probative to me. So what I would want to say, I will tell you, I will vote for this, but what I'm not voting for is this is not a critique of excellent Campbell faculty and staff. It's not. They're doing great, wonderful, transformational things with 4 and 2 kids, and I would anticipate they will continue doing exactly that. In fact, a number of them very likely will be doing those same special things at McGregor. To me, this ultimately, as an educator, turns on having more than one class per grade level. That, I think, is a reality that flies in the face of best practices on anything other than a one-year horizon. I think there is much benefit to be gained in this kind of integration. This is not an endorsement of big box schools, of massive schools. This is not a huge school. This is still going to be a moderate-sized school. It's going to be more of a blended family than a big box, it seems to me. And these neighborhood schools are, I think, very similar in a lot of ways, and particularly with the specials teachers now being full-time, that's also a one-to-one, I think, sense of familiarity. And this is not, most importantly, any comment whatsoever on York, Bowerman, or any other school. This is not an endorsement, it's not a slippery slope, it's not a precedent. I have no patience for arguments of precedent that say if we do this, ergo we must do that. We as a board will make independent judgments on every one of those things whenever the evidence comes in. And I will, John, I was pleased to hear you mention the pilot program on transportation for early childhood. I would also ask, as a board member, the administration to reflect on, the safety issues, the transportation issues, and to think creatively about other ways we might deal with that in this integration period, and just think creatively. Again, this is not a precedent. Precedent only becomes one if we choose to make it one down the road. So all of that said, I think the support from McGregor must be robust, will be robust. This is not a rubber stamp of anything. I think this has been a decision that this board has thought very long and hard about. So I at least wanted to do you the credit of at least sharing why I'm going to wind up where I am.
Thank you, Charles. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Bruce, you have some remarks?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot more about class size than I think about building size. And I think about full-time support staff. because we have not been able to provide full-time, Charles mentioned that, counselors, maybe nurses, so kids only get sick when the nurse is there, or you have to call another school and you have to wait till they get there. Very inefficient and not effective way. We've seemed to, as a school system, taken on a lot of responsibility for other things than just academic learning and teaching reading. Although we know that's important, we realize how many other things affect our teachers' ability to teach reading, and our students fed, our students healthy, our students able to work with a counselor based on emotional, social needs that they have outside of that building. So we've taken those on. We've supported those positions. And at reasonably sized schools, we have provided full-time help in those areas, which I think is important to teachers. I think it's also the ability now, more than ever, it's important for teachers to be able to collaborate at some grade level, to be able to talk about what's working, what's not working, and even to be able to have the ability, if a student is not working well with one teacher, to have an option of where that student can go in the same building and have another option. So I think dumbing down is completely inaccurate, completely inaccurate. I think we have fantastic teachers at all of our facilities. I think that's an insult to teachers at other facilities when we say we're sending them to you because it's dumbing down. I don't like that. Love and care happens in every one of our buildings at every grade level, and it just doesn't happen at one building. This doesn't quite seem possible, but it gives you my age. When I started teaching at Central in 1966, I still don't know how big Central was, but I know how big my 5 classes were, because that's what I thought my job was to build relationships with those students in my class. And that's when learning occurred, or if I failed, learning didn't occur. Sometimes it didn't. You know, I wasn't 100% effective. But I don't know how big Central was. It was big. But I know how big my class is. And so when I look at the proposal and look at the class size and it's still under what many of our Title I schools are, and I look at the other resources these teachers will have at their fingertips to be able to provide an excellent education opportunity for every student, then at this point in time, I would see no reason not to approve this proposal.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else have remarks?
I'll speak briefly, because I feel the same way I think Charles and Bruce do, is that given that we've had so many speakers, I just feel like I owe it to them to speak back in a way. I want to thank the speakers. I'm grateful for them for their commitment to come to this meeting and other meetings, actually, and their courage to speak out on this difficult issue. It's difficult for all of us. One of the speakers also reached out to me by phone recently, and I appreciated that a great deal. Although there's much that speaker and I agreed on in our conversation, there are some finer points that we disagreed on, and it's clear from what the speaker said tonight that we didn't change each other's mind as a result of our conversation. Another of tonight's speakers said what he thinks or believes is of no consequence, but that doesn't apply to us. We're here because we have to think and believe and then act. And so there are consequences to what we do. So I've ruminated on this with a number of patrons in the district. I've been in Campbell and McGregor every week for the past few weeks. I've been in McGregor even longer than that, weekly. I've deliberated the short-term and long-term challenges and the benefits and looking at the plan that's been put forth, and I have just come to the conclusion that it's in the better interest of all that I approve this plan for Campbell.
Thank you, Tim. Other, Denise? I'm sorry? I can't hear. Did you say let Jerry go first? Okay.
Mine's very brief. And I understand all the concerns, all the emotions, all the alternatives. And as Tim and everybody said, I appreciate the response, the community response. I think it's fantastic to have that. I applaud that. But I have faith in the kids. I have faith in our teachers to make something happen. And not just this issue, but any issue that comes before me, in my mind, my first thought is, can I look a parent in the eye and say, this is good for your kid? And if I believe that, that's where I'm going. And I believe that it's ultimately good for the kid. And whether it's buildings, it's curriculum, it's whatever. I just think I have to feel comfortable in my own heart that this is good. And if I don't, then, we'll take care of that. But I think this short-term, long-term especially, this is good. Gives us an opportunity for early childhood too, which that's, certainly I'm a big believer of that. And that I know what the benefits are of that. And that's going to help in the long run too. So, short and sweet.
Thank you, Jerry. Are you ready, Denise?
I'll try. So, I hope you can hear me, because some of my remarks I want to respond to some of our speakers. And once again, I'm a little, let's see, what was our person said earlier? Some of my doodahs out of my zippity tonight, so I'm going to try to proceed with this. Plus, my watch just told me that my heart rate has exceeded what is good for me, so you'll all know this is an emotional issue for me as well. I'm a Fairview. I doubt very many of you know where that is. That was my elementary, a 3-room schoolhouse next to Hillcrest. That's where I went to elementary. So I didn't go to a 1-room schoolhouse, but I went to a 3-room. It is now closed and has been for a number of years. I attended Reed and Hillcrest, so I am a North Side girl. I grew up on North Campbell, East Norton, North Summit, North Campbell. I also taught in Springfield for 16 years. And I was just thinking it was exactly 20 years ago that I received the Teacher of the Year recognition. And so that teacher's heart is still beating right here. I was also the Title I director in this district for several years. And I think my love for that came from the fact that I would have been a Title I. I was a Title I student. So when I hear comments from folks that I appreciate you coming forward and feeling comfortable coming and talking to us, but I will have to tell you that I hate hearing things about that we have failed our North Side schools, that we are ignoring Title I schools, that we need to stop discriminating against North Side schools, because I take it very personal. That's my home. I grew up in Springfield. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. We're not taking advantage of small community schools in what we're looking at tonight. And I also took the time, because I have the luxury of that time, I'm retired, of visiting Campbell and McGregor. And I had a really unique opportunity. I appreciate so much the teachers at Campbell taking the time. And we had what you call a real good conversation, because it was on the parking lot after school. If you really want to know what teachers are thinking, that's where you meet, and that's where we talked. So I got to hear a lot of things, and I really, really was seeking what is the best thing for these kids. Because that's what we all agreed when we left that parking lot, is we're looking out for the very best interest of the kids at Campbell and McGregor and all throughout our district. So I believe in our Campbell kids. I believe that, and I believe in our teachers at McGregor. I believe in our Campbell teachers wherever they go. They're going to take that same passion and that same caring, that same dedication with them. And I do not believe this board, certainly I am not, going to rubber stamp anything that I do not believe is the best thing for kids. And I do have student success at the top of my list. And I do want to be held accountable for people that voted for me. In fact, my very first campaign, I did door-to-door canvassing across the street from Bowerman, because that is where my little brother went to school. And my mom was PTA president there, and that's a very important neighborhood for me as well, although that's not what we're here to talk about tonight, but I just wanted to throw that in. So I hope you understand that I've thought about this a lot, and I have much more to say, but it's probably a good idea that I'm a little down health-wise tonight, so I don't ramble on and on and on. But I remember back in 2005 and 2006 when Shady Dell was a K-5, and Shady Dell was, students were transferred to other schools, and it became a preschool in 2006 and 2007. That's been 11 years ago, and as part of Title I, I had the privilege to visit Shady Dell Early Childhood Center often, and I had some favorite classrooms that I got to go visit, and to see what we did there, what this district did there for 4-year-olds was amazing. I had a chance to go to many of their little graduations and see their families come out dressed in their very best and dressing their kids in their very best. To graduate from preschool was an amazing thing. And so after my visits at McGregor, and I had an opportunity to experience the welcoming attitude of the teachers there and the principal there, and their ideas and thoughts about how they could bring the children from Campbell in. And I talked to the Campbell teachers, and I understand that they've been in that building a long time and it's their home, and they're very concerned about the students not falling through the cracks as they move into a larger school. But I expressed my concerns with the administration that we have additional support, and I think it's amazing that they're going to have more Title I support than any other title school, even those larger than McGregor, to see them through this transition time. I feel good about that. I also feel great about the Boys and Girls Club announcing that they're going to have a before and after school there for the families, kids. So just so that you know that this is not just a very quick decision without a lot of thought and discussion. And I also ended my visits to stopping by Shady Dell, and I had the opportunity to visit with a little boy, 4 years old, started the school year speaking no English. And he and I sat on the carpet, played with Legos, and he talked to me fluently. And he is also now the interpreter for his family. He doesn't speak English. So we're doing amazing things for 4-year-olds. And the idea, the thought of that occurring at Campbell next year for 200 kids, I think. And part of our Every Child Promise that we have established in Springfield to get as many kids in preschool as possible is very encouraging to me. So that's kind of why, among some other things, I will be voting this evening.
Thank you, Denise. Well, I appreciate everybody's remarks tonight, and I am going to now ask if there is a motion that the board authorize administration to repurpose Campbell Elementary, currently a kindergarten through 5th grade school, to an early childhood center for preschool age students, effective for the 2018-2019 school year.
So moved.
Charles with a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jerry with a second. Now would everyone please vote? I may have to do that. I don't have one. You want me to do a verbal? Okay, So the motion carries with a unanimous vote. And we will move on to report from administration, 11.01 cabinet report from Dr. Jungmann.
Very good. So you saw some information on the safety prioritization on the capital list. We are continuing to also analyze the operational components because it's two buckets that we're working on that issue. We'll continue to have additional feedback processes from parents, teachers, leaders, and students, as I have advisory councils that'll be meeting in the next few days. So we're going to use that to continue to build up our recommendations and fine tune that list and prioritize. So I know if you have feedback, let us know, but that was an initial run. Now we're working on the next set of prioritization. We'll also turn it over to our cabinet members for a quick update. So Ms. Embry, we'll start with you.
I would like to share that Dr. Shaw has equipped me with information that the white fleet term originated from the military and referenced all non-combat military vehicles. Inquiring minds want to know.
Let it be noted that SPS vehicles do not engage in combat.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe that's more reason we need a different term.
And I may have missed it, but there were no public comments. That was the last time when we can hear that out.
There wasn't any additional.
And then the other thing I will share is Travis and I look forward to providing you with our focus area 3 report at the next board meeting. But we will also still have our continuing budget developments. Work in progress.
That'd be great trivia, but I want to thank everybody who attended the Rose Banquet not too long ago to honor our just the academic success of our seniors all across the district. It was a great night to celebrate and to hear where those kids are going to go and attend school and major in. It's just absolutely phenomenal, and it gives me assurance that we're all in really good hands in this community with really smart kids. So the other one I wanted to kind of recognize is Build My Future, which was an event out at Ozark Empire Fairgrounds. Last year we took about 150 students to that. This year we took 350 students, so I want to thank Constance Leonard and all of those teachers who were endorsing that and giving kids exposure and experience to all kinds of careers in the construction field. And if you got to go, Mr. Hall and I went and saw kids driving machinery and dump trucks and laying bricks and building framing houses. It was all hands-on experience, so really a wonderful partnership with them and our students. I also want to congratulate the 500 students who participated in the District 5 solo and small group music ensemble at Gillendale High School. And we had, of that 500 students, 156 of them did qualify for state competition. We'll be going up to Columbia, I believe, for that competition. So congratulations to our music and students. So thank you.
Well, our leaders throughout the district are working diligently to hire for the 18-19 school year, and as of this afternoon, we have hired 91 teachers for the upcoming school year. We have 47 positions currently posted, and so please encourage educators to consider SPS. Our leaders took the charge seriously when we asked them to move up the hiring timeline and to hire early, and so we continue to work with them to identify needs and build and so to get those positions posted. But they're working very hard, and we hit that 91 mark. When I walked into this room, we were at 86, so we moved to 91 in just a very short time this afternoon, and so we will continue to see those numbers rise. But we would like to have the opportunity to attract the best, and when the pool is the largest for us, and now is the time because all of our neighbors are coming to the door and knocking and hiring as well. And so we appreciate the efforts of our leaders, and we look forward to working with them as we continue to fill positions for next year.
Stephen?
I would mention, how important community engagement is ongoing in so many ways, and we had an opportunity working with the Department of Health to engage with a variety of groups around the important issue of mental health, and conducted focus groups for the last 2 weeks with a number of individuals, including students, counselors, nurses, parents, as well as teachers. And that information will be used as part of a wide-ranging community report that the Department of Health is working on in the coming months. So we're pleased to be a part of that discussion. And in terms of our news coverage, we see seen great coverage of the teacher appreciation banquet last night from KY3 and Colorton and the newsletter celebrating Jean Lawson and the other fantastic finalists who just doing amazing work across this district. They are the heroes of this district, the heart of our school, and so great to see that information out there. Also, the newsletter will be visiting Delaware Elementary tomorrow to cover the great work of Mr. Sasser that you heard from earlier today and the extraordinary work he's doing with our nonverbal students, really opening language in new ways and for the first time. So expect that feature in the coming days. SPS.org continues to do a number of feature stories on our district, and so I encourage the public to continue reading there. We have a great story on Go Campus and internships, paid internships that are available to our students in manufacturing and other areas. Parent feedback surveys have gone out in the district. We're asking for feedback on the various schools and asking that parents take that survey by April 27th, and we're seeing a surge in the number of comments that we're receiving over last year. That's great. Central coach Brian Pitt, an advocate for mentors, young men. That story is featured on SPS.org. And then we're also doing a kindergarten registration. Those numbers continue to go up. We'll continue to encourage parents who know incoming kindergartners to register in advance. So just a brief overview there.
That's a report from administration. All right, we'll proceed to legislative update. It's relatively brief. The session has been a little sidetracked over the last week or so, as you're well aware. So the education move and news has been a little quieter on that front. I think the most important thing to be monitoring is the budget is in the hands of the Senate right now, and they're considering the contribution to the education side at this point. So we're not sure exactly where that's going to land. We know the House budget left in very good shape, and the governor's budget was healthy. The House did better. We'll see if the Senate holds the full funding or if it comes down a little bit. We're hearing mixed messages on that, as well as where they may land on transportation potentially. That's the two big components that matter the most to us when it comes to the state budget. So we'll be monitoring that. Also, obviously, the charter discussion is quieted because the House has been very busy with other things at this point. Doesn't mean that it's gone at this point. I think another thing that is important and relevant, I think you received an alert from MSBA today, is the bill regarding board terms and election timing. So I know your association has asked you to consider that and engage with your legislators. I think that would be a wise move. That's really an attempt, we believe, to politicize the school board in new ways by moving it into that environment. And we'll see where that plays. I think that's the first time I've seen it offered in Missouri is this year. And it just passed Kansas not long ago. So
Several states have done it. A few states have done it.
So I would stay engaged on that one. Any other legislative questions or things? We do have the Metro Partnership Breakfast next week, so if you're able to make it, I think Jerry is signed up to be there, and I will be there to engage with our other community leaders and our legislators on Wednesday morning as the session begins to draw to an end. This is when it speeds up and sometimes slows down drastically, depending on the moves in different locations. So stay tuned. It's never dull.
Very good. All right. So we're moving on to item 12, which is the Board of Education discussion. And I know several of you had an opportunity to speak this evening, but is there anything else anyone would like to share? Okay, I don't see any. The upcoming meeting is, the next one is May 3rd. I feel like we've had a meeting or two a week for the last couple weeks, so that's nice that there's a little delay there till May 3rd for the next one. And if anybody has any plus deltas.
Is it May 1?
Oh,
May 1st.
I need to tell you that this says May 3rd, so I read it correctly, but it's fine that it's wrong. It's okay. It's okay. That's to make sure these people are paying attention.
I was checking my schedule, so I thought that's.
My phone. I appreciate you all paying attention.
Who's going to?
We do have MSBA regional meeting next week.
That's what I
next
wanted
Tuesday.
to ask.
Yeah, I'm going to that.
Is everybody going?
That should be on here.
But I should be there. And we are,
We, yeah,
we are-
Everyone?
The district's presenting as one of the presenters.
one of the sessions, so.
Yeah, that should have been on my list too, so we'll see each other there. That's always a good event, okay? If you have any plus deltas, go ahead and write those. And we do have a need to go into executive session this evening, so I look for a motion that the board meet in executive session to discuss legal, real estate, and personnel matters as provided in section 610.021 subsections 1, 2, 3, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
So moved.
Thank you, Alina, and do I have a second?
Second.
Is that you, Charles? And please, everyone, vote. And thank everyone who's left for being here this evening.